Hello there. Inevitably in life, you are going to line up with an experience which causes you to feel negative emotion. We call this an upset. An upset is essentially your internal guidance system telling you that in this current moment, your actions or words or thoughts are not in alignment with your desire. It's essentially your inner compass telling you that you have gone off due north. If you feel upset, it's critical to know that you cannot control an upset once it has happened. You can't go back in time. The reality is you're feeling negative emotion. It's how you respond to that negative emotion that makes the difference between going even farther off course or allowing yourself to come back on course so that you're headed due north again. When we don't use an upset to cause us to become aware, when we don't use it to awaken us, that we have to become conscious of something we're unconscious of, what we do is we tend to react. For example, we slam doors or smoke a cigarette or yell at people or take an action that we feel gives us power over someone else. This reaction is a resistance to what's happening, and so it only serves to make matters worse. For this reason, I'm going to give you a formula to follow to create resolution once upset has occurred. Step 1. Rearrange the order of the conjunct words that make up upset. Once you do this, you arrive at an interesting truth. It's that an upset is in fact you being set up by the universe at large. The universe is setting you up to be completely aware of something. You are being set up to awaken. You are being set up to integrate what is unacknowledged, unintegrated, or heal what is unhealed within you. Because it is a setup, acknowledge that this is not the universe working against you. This is the universe offering you an opportunity. Because the universe is alerting you to an opportunity to awaken, you can treat an upset like an alarm clock going off, a red flag popping up, or my personal favorite, a meditation bell. Let the discomfort of the upset snap you awake and bring all of your focus to the present moment, so that all of your conscious attention can be placed on the situation at hand. It's best to address each upset as if that upset is in fact completely valid. It's not a question of whether it's right or wrong to feel upset. It's valid to feel upset. So instead of suppressing, denying, disowning, or rejecting these feelings, instead let yourself feel those feelings completely. 2. When you are upset, your nervous system kicks into high gear. It essentially goes into fight or flight mode to try to remove you from what it perceives as a threat. It's really difficult to deal appropriately with an upset when your nervous system is in that state of fight or flight. So what I want you to do are the following things. Breathing deep into your diaphragm and belly, inhale for a count of 4. Hold the breath in for the count of 2. Exhale gently, counting out for 8. And finish by holding the breath while you've breathed completely out for the count of 2. Keep your breathing even and smooth. What you want to make sure of is that the exhale is longer than the inhale. Then, fill your mouth with warm water, and while seated, bend your head forward into a basin of cold water, submerging your forehead, eyes, and at least 2/3 of your cheeks for as long as is comfortable. Breathe in and out your nose in between dunkings. You can repeat this process for a few minutes. Then begin to sway or rock your body back and forth for a few minutes. Rocking on your hands and knees, or while sitting with your arms hugging your knees tightly to your chest, seems to work best. Then, seek out deep touch or pressure anywhere you can find it. This could take the form of firm holding, firm stroking, cuddling, hugging, or squeezing. Perhaps wrap yourself tightly in a blanket, potentially even covering your head so you can feel a sense of containment. And when you feel ready, move on to the next steps, which involve facing the upset. Before we move on, I also want to mention that your nervous system is particularly soothed by singing. In fact, singing stimulates one of the primary nerves which is associated with your fight or flight mechanism, or your parasympathetic nervous system. So, sing, even if you have to sing along to someone else or something else to do that. Another idea you could use is to find music that's particularly soothing and make a playlist. And then what you can do is to play that music while you're doing that whole process that I've just described. 3. I want you to look at the recipe of an upset so that you can isolate the specific ingredients that are causing the recipe of that particular upset. Here are the ingredients to the recipe of upset. The first, an intention or desire that is opposed or prevented. Second, an expectation that has been unfulfilled. Third, an unsuccessful communication. All upset is comprised of one or all, potentially, of these particular ingredients. So let me give you some examples. Opposed or prevented intentions and desires cause us to feel emotions like hatred, rage, anger, or if you're feeling especially powerless, feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and despair. An example of an expectation that is unfulfilled is, I expect that my husband keeps me emotionally safe, but he told me something negative that someone else said about me and it caused me to feel bad. Keep in mind that expectations can be highly unconscious. Expectations give rise to feelings of disappointment and grief. An example of an unsuccessful communication is, I wanted to explain myself to my best friend, but all she did was hang up the phone when I called. Unsuccessful communication is a two-way street. It can be about us communicating to them or them communicating to us. Perhaps we failed to be able to communicate with the other person because of the way we worded something or the fact that they weren't open to the communication. Perhaps you withheld some authentic truth from them or they withheld some authentic truth from you. When we experience unsuccessful communication, we feel abused, stuck, trapped, rejected, and violated. When we feel upset, and we're ready to face that upset, we have to become completely aware of these ingredients that create the upset. We have to become completely aware about what expectation is going unfulfilled. And we have to become completely aware of what we need to communicate that is not being accurately delivered. We need to find a way to communicate directly with ourselves and also other people involved in the conflict about these deeper roots that go into the upset. For example, I may feel upset because my husband left the socks on the floor. But it's really not about the socks on the floor. It's about the fact that I have the expectation that my husband respects me instead of takes me for granted. And when I see those socks on the floor, I feel taken for granted. So my expectation is going unfulfilled. If you would like to get deeper into the actual root of any of these upsets that you have, I would highly suggest trying to find the hidden core beliefs behind the thoughts you're thinking in these situations that upset you. For those of you that are interested in learning this particular process, I laid it out in my video on YouTube that is titled, How to Find a Core Belief. 4. Take a close look at what you are making the experience mean. Humans suffer more than any other species in this universe, in fact. They suffer because they don't just experience painful things, they also add painful meaning to those painful experiences. I'll give you an example. This last week, I lined up with a particularly traumatic experience. I looked out my window, and what I saw was a deer that had recently been hit by a car. Its leg was in fact broken in 5 different places. While the other members of my intentional community basically clamored around to try to figure out what the best option for helping this particular deer was, I stayed completely present with this deer. I also projected my consciousness into the perspective that deer was holding at that time, and I was pretty surprised, because this deer was in a serious amount of pain. But it wasn't suffering emotional angst in conjunction with that physical pain, because it wasn't making the experience mean anything. It couldn't think in that moment about the past. It wasn't thinking about the car accident. It wasn't thinking about the future and what this injury meant for it and its imminent death. It wasn't telling any stories about the fact that this means the world is against me, or that this is a harsh place to live and a dangerous world. It was purely in the experience of just what was happening in the now. So anytime you have an experience that causes you upset, I want you to consider that the actual experience itself is separate from what we make that experience mean. And what I want you to ask yourself is, what am I making this mean? Make your steps towards resolution, including your communication to other people, about this actual issue that goes into upsets, which is, what am I making this mean? If you want to learn more about this, I urge you to watch my video on YouTube titled Meaning, the Self-Destruct Button. 5. Consider that the way to know whether something should be happening is quite simple. It's happening. What we tend to do when something occurs that causes us to feel upset is we immediately swing into an idea that it shouldn't be happening. In fact, if you take a deep look into the world, into what causes human suffering is really about two things. Either we think something should be that isn't, or something shouldn't be that is. That is a resistance to the present moment. We cannot be in a state of allowing. This attachment to how things should be is a rigidity. It puts you at war with what is. It puts you at war with the present moment. So when you are ready, pretend you are a philosopher who must get way outside the paradigm of your current thinking and explore the question. Assuming this is supposed to be happening, why should this be happening? You can enhance this practice by trying to find and list all the positive aspects of a negative situation at hand. 6. If an upset cannot be eased by following the previous steps, then what you're dealing with is an old wound. You're dealing with a trigger. So what's happening essentially is that in that moment, whatever upset that you're engaged in is actually just a mirror of a previous upset you've had in your life, a deep wound that is unhealed, an aspect of the self that is unintegrated. And in that moment, that upset is calling you to take the light of your consciousness into the shadow of the unconscious in order to reintegrate the aspect of you that is fractured. When this is the case, instead of doing any action to try to feel better, you're going to go in the entire opposite direction and drop as deeply into that feeling as you possibly can to get better at feeling. From there, you're going to trace back to the original trauma, which is in fact being reflected in this particular experience, the trauma that is blending with the current situation at hand. And you're going to find some resolution for that. If you want to learn how to do this process in detail, I want you to watch my video on YouTube titled, How to Heal the Emotional Body. An upset is always a call to awaken. It is you being set up by the universe to make a change in your life, a change to your thoughts, to your communication, to your actions, or to the situation at hand. So answer that call. So use your upsets to become acutely aware of the ingredients that are going into that upset and make your adjustments to your life accordingly. And remember that an upset is never here to thwart your progress. It has only ever come to enhance it. Have a good week.